This is Frankie Lynch, Saturn Girl. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, and comment below because I want to know what you think, and it helps me out with the algorithm. But, excuse me, it's been a couple weeks since I've done any videos. You may notice that my face looks a little messed up. I had nasal surgery to fix a deviated septum and etc. So, just roll with it. I had to start doing stuff again because we have things going on. We have transits, we have astro weather, or whatever you want to call it. So, and I wanted to talk about a specific aspect coming up in just a few days. Because this Sunday, August 6th, the Sun in Leo will perfect a square to Jupiter in Taurus. What, pray tell, does this mean for you, for me, for us, for who the hell ever, right? Well, let's take a look at this little stuff here. So first of all, what does the sun mean? What is he in our system here? Well, he is justice, ambition, authority, revelation, and judgment, right? The sun rules Leo, and therefore he's at home there. He can comfortably express his independence, his authority, and enterprising nature. However, he also exposes things, doesn't he? The sun shines light on whatever, and that's why he was associated with divination. So the sun exposes things. And with authority, sometimes he exposes himself. Right, I'm thinking the emperor's new clothes a little bit, right? So anyway, now the sun is also ruling Leo, which is a fixed sign. So it can be very stubborn and unyielding, right?
My way.
So now what's Jupiter? Jupiter's wisdom, teaching, philosophy, religion, honors, and abundance, right? Now, along with the abundance thing, Jupiter does what? He blows shit up, right? He makes things bigger. He inflates them, doesn't he? He's not called the gas giant for nothing, right? Astronomically. So, now when Jupiter's in Taurus, right? Jupiter's spirituality, and Taurus is a nourishing type sign. So we can think of spiritual food, right? We always associate Taurus with food, don't we? So now what are... and also Taurus is what? A fixed sign. So, like Leo, stubborn and unyielding. Yeah. So anyway, squares. What are squares here? They are a hard aspect, meaning they are not fun and they are not easy. However, it is the squares and the hard aspects that make things happen, right? It's through friction and through conflict that new things arise, yes? So squares are in the nature of Mars. They're sort of like quicker collisions and conflicts. Sometimes splits and schisms, things like that. So when these things come together, the Sun and Jupiter come together in a square, we'll see things like overreaches in authority. Inflated egos, right? Pomp and circumstance. The the people who feel very important and just take turns going down on each other, basically. Pomp and circumstance. I also think of like ceremony and people with lots of medals and things clinking, clanking.
Walking with the chest out and all these things, these honors,
right? In the end, we can't take them with us, can we? Also feeling self-righteous, which I typically do anyway, but I have the sun opposite Jupiter natally, so I'm always a bit self-righteous, So, but what does this mean for us in general? Well, we see this correlate a lot with corruption, right? That is engaging in corruption and exposing corruption, because like we said, the sun reveals things, he exposes things, he brings light to situations. Now, what are some examples of this? Well, we had this aspect back in March of 2019. And for those of you who may recall, that's when U.S. Democrats announced they were launching a corruption investigation into the Trump administration, right? And this is interesting because we can think of the whole nature of corruption, especially in this context, as someone using their wealth and their position or rank or influence in order to get what they want or impose their will, or their rule, right? So Jupiter is like the wealth and position, and the sun is like the authority and the will and what we want. Yes, the ambition. And yes, my precious. God, my face looks terrible right now. I'm so sorry. Well, anyway. As long as it feels better soon. I'm supposed to breathe like 50% better. So, I don't know. We'll see. And the interesting thing about this is we just had a new Trump indictment unsealed. It's the third one, isn't it? So, and this one's pertaining to the January 6th insurrection. So this is a big deal. We're not going to go into details about this. It's just interesting in the context of Sun square Jupiter, isn't it? Oh, and just so you see here, right, we have Jupiter down here, 14 degrees Taurus, and we have the Sun up here, 14 degrees Leo. They are both fixed signs on the fixed cross, right? So Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, Scorpio. That's the fixed cross. Yes, the fixed signs. Therefore, we know they are square to each other. So we can just sort of think like, oh gosh, I know that the Sun is in Leo right now and Jupiter's in Taurus, so they're going to be square at some point, right? Or they're square by sign and they're going to be by degree at some point. It's just something we can recognize very quickly. So anyway, we talked about corruption. What are some other examples of corruption here? Well, also at that same time, March 2019, U.S. federal prosecutors formally charged actress Felicity Huffman, along with plenty of others, in a college admissions criminal scam. So basically, I guess what they were doing was paying some other scammer to inflate their kids' SAT scores to try and guarantee them a spot at prestigious universities, which is very, very illegal. And I believe she served time for it and had to do community service. So you may remember, I don't know what movie she's been off the top of my head, but she's the wife of the other famous actor, William H. Macy, who I always remember from Fargo. Like, oh yeah, don't you know? Anyway, a whole other thing. So, but moving right along. So, this is a great example of attempting to inflate Jupiter, inflate test scores, right? To ensure them a spot. And the other thing that's interesting is Jupiter, wealth and position, right? Using that to try and secure what she wants, right? The Sun wants. Now, the other thing that just came up as far as corruption I thought was quite interesting was Lizzo, the famous musician, singer, is being sued and just got a lawsuit was just announced by some of her former dancers, former employees, that she was cultivating a hostile work environment. So some of the accusations, or allegations rather, are abusive rehearsals, like 12 to 16-hour rehearsals without breaks. One dancer like went to the bathroom on herself because she couldn't go. And then Lizzo was accused of sexual harassment. And she apparently took dancers to the red light district in Amsterdam when they were performing there. And you may know that there are adult performers doing various things there. And she was pressuring her dancers to interact and engage physically with them. And that is harassment. I mean, these are sort of serious allegations. And given someone who's cultivated that sort of image of being inclusive and being someone who stands up for the vulnerable, this doesn't look good. This isn't a good look for her. So we'll see what happens. And once again, Sun and Jupiter, right? Taking advantage of one's position and authority. Being a bad boss, in essence. And I was a manager for many years, so, I know a little bit about that. Now, on the other side of this, we can also think of it as standing up for the right thing, not just corruption, but the opposite of corruption, right? Trying to stand for an ideal. And some examples of this also from March of 2019. Well, California Governor Gavin Newsom announced a permanent moratorium on the death penalty in California. He cited the fact that it was unfairly discriminative against the poor and people of color. Statistically, you could see that. And this, in a way, is standing up for the right thing because it was something that was unjustly and disproportionately applied to a certain segment of society, a more vulnerable segment, while the powerful tended to get off more, right? So it's just worth noting that because the sun is authority, again, an imposition of authority, but Jupiter is also mercy and represents mercy for us. So very important. Another interesting event that happened around the same time was that the young Swedish climate activist known as Greta Thunberg, I think is how you say her name. At least that's how Amy Goodman says it. So Greta Thunberg, I think. Anyway, you guys can all talk crap about me later. But anyway, she inspired worldwide global climate strikes enacted by school children. The school children of Earth, unite, right? You have nothing to lose but the temperatures? I don't know. But this was amazing. It was an amazing event. And you could think of it as the sun here being an emissary of the children, right? Shining a light and exposing an existential threat to humanity, climate change. And Jupiter is the wisdom about the subject and about what's going on and the wisdom to express. So now what does this mean for you individually? Well, like I said earlier, self-righteousness, something I always do. Self-righteousness and fanaticism sometimes. So being overly enthusiastic about what you believe. Being particularly preachy. For those of us with Jupiter Sun aspects anyway in our charts, you'll know what I'm talking about, right?
Well, I know.
And it's even worse when you have Jupiter in Sagittarius like I do, because then, we don't follow our own advice, but we sure dispense it. Anyway, the other thing we can see is trying to force people to our own way, right? It's good to be clear and honest about what you want, especially if you're a people pleaser type, right? But if you want your point heard, you also have to be willing to listen to other people's. So I'm saying that out loud for myself because I'm usually like, talk to the hand. I don't want to hear it. I don't care. As what was his name? Richard Pryor, the comedian. He used to say, I don't give a fuck. I just don't care. So anyway, I love Richard Pryor. I don't want to get off topic. I almost started talking about Richard Pryor movies. Like that one with him and Gene Wilder. See no evil, hear no evil. Anyway, that was really funny. Stop, Frankie, stop. Anyway, so what else about you? Well, being overly optimistic. We will have a tendency, right, to overreach or to assume that we can do more or bite off more than we can really chew. Our eyes are bigger than our mouths, so to speak. We may have a tendency to cut corners or miss details. So really, this is a time to slow down and stop and think, because the tendency will not be to do that. We need to pay attention to potential problems or red flags, because likely we'll be so rare and to go that we'll miss them and we won't pay attention. Remember to keep as sober of a mind as you can during this time. Because again, that sense of optimism, that sense of that sense of having everything handled, that sense of I got this, which is so typically Leo and very indicative of the sun. These give us a sense of false security. And so we have a tendency just to let other things slide. We could have very easily avoided situations if we took 5 seconds just to double check. And that's what I mean about being overly optimistic, right? Oh yeah, I turned the stove off. You better go check. Go check. So now what else here? Being independent, which is so very Leo and Sun, right? But Jupiter again amplifies these things. So even if you're a 12th house Leo Sun, you'll get a little electric shock here going. And by that I mean just that sense of self-importance, right? So being independent, we often feel a greater sense of self-importance or self-congratulation. Like, oh yes, I did that. I'm so great. I'm so wonderful. Do. But you have to be careful with that because we never are a rock or an island. And there are always people that facilitate our success. So, if nothing else, be honest with yourself. It's hard. Sun in Leo, square Jupiter and Taurus, to be honest with oneself. Or to see other points of view. These are very myopic signs. Very fixed, right? So this means that it's difficult for them to get off their direction. When they're pointed in one direction, it's very hard to redirect that ship, isn't it? So we may get frustrated here with other people's perceived slowness. They might not even be slow. It's just like like Billy Madison, today, Junior, right? So their need for consideration and deliberation might be annoying to us. It's like, let's fucking do it, damn it. Come on. Come on. Go, 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 go. And this is another indication that we need to stop and think, isn't it? I mean, bring a little consciousness. I think T.S. Eliot said that. Famous poem, Burnt Norton. Amazing sort of dissertation on time. But he says, allow but a little consciousness. To be conscious is not to be in time, but only through time is time conquered. Anyway, allow but a little consciousness. That's being there in the moment and aware and not just having your life lived for you, through you. Something I talk about all the time. Now, this also can mean having to do things for yourself or go it alone. Remember that sense of independence. So, you could be like George W. Bush and trust your gut. Be a decider. I believe he has Mercury in Leo, so that's a good indication of being a decider, right? So, also be careful not to alienate friends, because we will be pushing our own agenda, our own beliefs, and our own passions. And this is why I said earlier, it behooves us during this time to listen as best we can, because that will not be our natural tendency right now. So, and that means being open to feedback. If you can't handle it, and this is what I have to do in my personal life, is sometimes I have to say, I can't do this right now. I have to walk away and come back to it. I can't do this conversation right now. And that's okay. As long as you're honest and you don't just burn the bridge right there, right? And we got to be open to feedback, because not everything is how we perceive it. And not everything is matching our expectations. Doesn't mean we have to just assume people are right or take things that people are telling us. But we can keep it in the back of our heads as something to consider or to look at when we're ready to do so. Maybe we'll recognize some truth to it. Maybe we won't. But the looking and the awareness is a great opportunity. So anyway, I hope this was useful or helpful for you in some ways. Thank you for watching till the end. This really does help me out. Like the video, subscribe to my channel, share my shit, please. You need to do this for me. And I do wonderful readings. All my information is in the description below. So please hit me up. You're beautiful. I love you. And have a wonderful whatever you're having.